Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by the big picture that you froze and did nothing? I've been there. I've learned that the two biggest obstacles to creating lasting change have been not getting started in the first place and quitting when things got tough. I've encountered both situations more times than I can count, and I was sick of it. Sick of not getting the results that I wanted, and sick of feeling disappointed in myself because I knew that I could do better. I was determined to figure out how to break the cycle of frustration, and eventually I did. I'm going to share three concepts that completely changed how I approach doing the hard things that matter to me. And it all began with a single step. You may have heard of the 1% rule before, but I have a different take on it that I haven't heard elsewhere. It was popularized by James Clear's book Atomic Habits, where he said that small actions done consistently have a compound effect over time. It's beautifully simple. If you improve just 1% each day, then after 70 days, you will have doubled your impact. It means that seemingly uneventful tiny actions add up, like brushing up on a skill for a few minutes a day or writing 100 words every morning. Tiny gains compounded daily can lead to massive transformation over time. But what does 1% even look like? If you think about it in terms of a day, 1% of 24 hours is just 15 minutes. Did you have 15 minutes today that you could have used for something really important to you? I definitely did. Doom scrolling easily eats up 4 times that amount of time when I'm not paying attention. The key is consistency, not volume. When you show up regularly, you stack up small wins, and with each win, your confidence grows. I love this quote by writer Robert Collier. Success is a sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. One of my biggest struggles has been that I have this tendency to try to do it all, excel at work, at home, with my family, etc. I've received messages my entire life that I have to do it all, that I failed if I don't. But when I try to do everything well, I end up either burning out or not getting the results I wanted because I was stretched too thin. That's where the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule comes in. It's based on the findings that 80% of our results comes from just 20% of our efforts. So instead of trying to tackle every single thing on my never-ending to-do list, I ask myself, what are my one or two priorities for today? And that's where I focus my energy and attention until I've accomplished them before I move on to other things. Economist Joseph Juran labeled this as the vital few versus the trivial many. I no longer wait for time to magically open up so that I can focus on my priorities or think, I'll just check my emails first. Because that's what the old me would have done, and I've already shared how that worked out. What are the trivial many that you can stop doing to make room for the vital few that you need to focus on? I'm not going to lie, this was probably the hardest concept for me to turn into a reality at first. I was concerned about letting people down or not living up to their expectations. But once I was clear on what mattered most to me, when I started saying no to the things that weren't my priorities, when I had the courage to say yes to the things that were important to me, I started to see results without the burnout. And it felt liberating. I now try to live by the 3 Ds: delegate, delete, or defer the 80% so that I can focus on the 20% that matter most. Finally, motivation fades, but habits stick. I stopped relying on willpower and started building small, repeatable habits. These tiny, consistent actions have rewired how I show up every day. Here are a handful of techniques that really helped me to make new habits stick. The first is to make it easy to start, like ridiculously easy. And there are two ways I go about it. First, I begin with something so simple that it's almost effortless. When I started this YouTube channel, I was overwhelmed by everything that I needed to do, and I set a super simple and achievable goal. Work on my script for 50 minutes at the beginning of each day. It doesn't have to be good, it doesn't even have to be coherent. I just needed to make the bar so low that I didn't have an excuse to start. And that was it. And with 6 videos under my belt, I have the proof in myself that it worked. Second, I reduce the friction. Friction is any seemingly minor obstacle that has the possibility of preventing me from starting. For example, without fail, the day before each filming day, I start to think of excuses why I'm not ready yet. So I now spend a few minutes doing the easy things that will help me to increase my odds of filming the next day. Last night, I prepped the space by pulling out my tripods, checking the battery life on my mics, and tidying up a bit. It wasn't anything too involved, but those 10 minutes I think really makes a difference. This morning, when I saw that everything was pretty much ready to go, I thought, Well, I might as well. Also, prepping in advance helps to minimize unwelcome surprises the day of. These little steps help to clear the path forward. Next, I give myself permission to show up imperfectly. The myth of perfection is probably the single most responsible factor that's prevented me from starting. Self compassion is what has helped me to overcome it. When perfectionism starts creeping in, I tell myself that perfection isn't the goal, progress is. Done is better than perfect. I also remind myself that I'm human and it's okay if I make mistakes. I'm not alone in this. If you want to learn more, check out the second episode in this series. Last but not least is the concept of don't break the chain. This idea came from comedian Jerry Seinfeld. He'd mark an X on the calendar for every day he wrote jokes, and the goal was to keep the momentum going. When I wanted to build a daily yoga habit, I created my own version of this. Every day I did at least 5 minutes of yoga, I added a link to a literal chain. And it was surprisingly motivating and kind of adorable. After about 90 days, yoga became a non negotiable part of my day. I don't need this chain anymore, but I keep it on my desk as a reminder that I can make habits stick. The truth is, so much of success comes down to habits. And habits aren't just routines, they're votes for the kind of person you want to become. You don't need to do everything perfectly, you just need to do what matters most to you consistently. Here are just a few final quick tips to consider. Connect your habit to a bigger goal so that it's more than just that single task. Set a timer for 15 or 30 minutes, just enough to get started. Track your progress and reflect, not to judge yourself, but to learn what's working and what's not. And if you miss a day, that's okay. When that happens, ask yourself, what got in the way? What might I do differently tomorrow? You don't need to overhaul your life to make big changes. You just need to start small. Success doesn't come from doing everything. I've tried that and it doesn't work. It comes from doing a few small things one day at a time. And with time, those tiny steps become something powerful. You're not just doing tasks, you're building belief in yourself, and that's the foundation for lasting change. Before you know it, you're doing the hard things that you once thought were impossible. Let me know in the comments what's one small action that you can take today that your future self will thank you for. This was the final episode of a 6-part series on how to do hard things sustainably. Thanks to anyone who watched from the start. It's been a journey for me to get to this point, and I'm so grateful that I had these concepts to get me through. And if you're just joining in, welcome. I invite you to go back and start at the very beginning because doing hard things takes time and practice and consistent effort. And if you want to take things further, coaching might be that one next step that's right for you. You can click the link in the description to book a free consult. Take care and see you in the next video.